And thank you everyone for coming. So yeah, today, even though I work on a very specific topic of animal testing, today I'm gonna share with you a little bit of a research that I recently did on stakeholder analysis and why I think it's so important for the advocacy movement. So I'm gonna start first with a little bit of a sum up in case you don't know, you haven't heard about the concept. So a stakeholder basically is a person, a group, an organization that has a stake, right? Has an influence on the project, idea, goal of advocacy that you're working in. So they are people who might be around your organization, but also maybe people or organizations that are very far away, but do have an influence in the decision-making of whatever it is that you're pursuing. So having them in your scope, knowing who they are and strategizing around them is super, super important. I cannot stress it enough for your efforts to be very efficient, because I might be working on, let's say, advocacy in the policy sector, trying to get some congressmen to approve, but maybe that is not the stakeholder that I need to work with. Maybe there's another person whose decision is very much influenced to the congressman, for example. So there's many ways that I can allocate efficiently my funding and my efforts in a way that it could be much more fast and much more efficient to get to my goal than just working around, just pinpointing who am I going to connect to without having a real strategy. So why is it so important? And I'm gonna repeat myself a little bit because I only have 10 minutes. I really want you to get with some knowledge in your head. First, keep an eye for opponents. So we might be working on something and we think that everyone is very forward, but there might be people who are working against us and we don't even know about it. So doing a stakeholder analysis might allow us to see who is for my purposes and who is against it. I do a strategic money allocation. I would put my time, my efforts, my investment of time in people who I know might be helping me to get faster, and keep my eye and my strategy on the ones who might want to stop my goal to happen, right? The other thing is pushing to the same direction. I mean this in a way that if I'm the one having a clear idea of who my stakeholders are, I may influence them on how to speak, on how my project is. So there might be a lot of people working in the same field as me, but if we don't have the same language and the same communication strategy, it might be confusing to other people to understand and to receive the message. And it might be confusing to understand that we're all working towards the same goal. So I feel like it's very important not only to know who's working with me and who is for my goal, but also to have them pushing towards my direction with my strategy and with my communication decisions. And the last one, there's many others, but I just summed it up here. Last one is you're it in the issue. If someone is thinking about the issue that you're working in, they're gonna think about you and your organization. And that is key when you're doing policy and advocacy work. It's key to be the representative of a topic. If you get Googled, if you get announced, someone will say, oh yeah, I know them, I've heard of them, I had a meeting with them last week. So if you have that reference happening all the time in your advocacy efforts, you're gonna create a trust without even talking to them, because you already talked to the key ones that you need to be speaking to. So there's many ways to do stakeholder analysis, and I only have 10 minutes, so I'm not gonna go through it deeply, but I just wanted to really tell you what about the main phases that I found that are very straightforward around most of stakeholder analysis strategies. So the first one is to identify who they are. So we tend to just stay with the obvious answer to who should be engaged with. There's obvious answers. If I want to do a bill, I have congressmen, people, I have people working in the Senate, deputies, like that is really straightforward answer to that question. But there's another part of it all with a lot of key influencers that I might don't even know they exist. I might don't even know that they are the key people to help me with my issue. So doing a good discovery process and organization of them is very, very important. So second is organization. So categorize is understanding who they are and where they scope. Let's say if they're governmental, let's say if they're private corporations, social society, or their NGOs. It's very important to have them categorized and also understand what is their level of influence, is there key stakeholders, secondary, primary, to understand who am I going to allocate my time and efforts to get engaged with them, strategize with them, because I don't have enough money to talk to all of the stakeholders of my project, right? And the third one is strategize. So I have here a couple of 4 types of stakeholders, and I'm going to show you a little graphic, which I think you can understand a little bit better. But promoters are the type of stakeholders that have a lot of influence in your project and a lot of interest, right? So those are the ones you want to keep close. You get your reports to, you really get them engaged in your organization. Defendants are the ones who have low influence, but a lot of interest. So those could be, for example, donors of you. So they have a lot of interest in you and your goals, but they're not going to really push for the end goal of your project or your advocacy efforts. So you want to keep them close, and you want to try to see if there's someone who can actually be more influential, if there's a way that they can grow from that perspective into being promoters. So latents are low influence, low interest. So those are the ones to keep in the loop. If they're not key stakeholders, that's okay. If they're a key, I want them to get that influence and that interest up, right, somehow. And then apathetics are the ones who you have to keep an eye with. They're high influence, low interest. They don't care about your project. They probably are in business in something that is very much against your project. Let's go agriculture, animal farmers. So those are the ones who are really important, because we want to know what are they doing, what are they up to, who are they talking to. So that is very important to keep in mind, and knowing who they are, and not only the obviously ones, the ones that come in straight in my head, are also many of them are suppliers for, or the owners of the land, you know? So it's very important to have them categorized, very much identified in a higher scope, organized and strategize accordingly. So here are 2, I did this analysis in general. Like I said, there's many ways to do stakeholder analysis. So this is just an example of how an organization by type would look like, and how a strategy by interest influence would look like. So if you see, you have 2 divisions in the first area. So you have civil society, private sector, and state, and then whether there's key stakeholders, primary, secondary. So this is super interesting, because I didn't know this. I did the research last year, and I discovered that, oh wow, my key stakeholders are state and civil society. And I have so many from private sector. So many. I've worked so hard on them. And they're secondary stakeholders. They don't even have that much of influence in what I do. So I was like, what have I been doing for the last 10 years? Like, I'm completely off of what my focus should be. So I switched my whole strategy to go into civil society and state to change laws. And that is only something that I figured out 10 years after working in the movement, because I did this. So please do it. And maybe it's something that this will happen, and you'll get there much faster. And the second one is categorization. It's much more straightforward. You have this map, so you know who you have to engage with more deeply. So I have only 2 minutes, I'm going forward. And this is just impact that we've had. In the past 3 years, we banned animal testing. We work on animal testing issues. We banned it in Chile and in Mexico. Within 5 years of lobbying, we've been working on the issue for 12. So imagine our surprise when we really started working deep on the stakeholder analysis. It really paid off within a couple of years. We had everyone talking the same language that we were telling them to talk. So we could see our sentences repeated in corporate, in states, in law bills, because we were the ones who gave them that information. And if they were looking to talk about animal testing, they would come to us. So that was super important for us to keep us straightforward messages and everyone talking the same language. So we're the references, we're the reference in Latin American cruelty-free issues. And less than 10% of staff, we don't have rotation in our paid staff. And I need to breathe. Sorry, I'm about to finish. And the last one is because our stakeholders management strategy is based on volunteer work and our staff. So those are our key stakeholders. So because we know that our staff is key stakeholder, we work a lot on them. And we fired 3 people in the last year, and all of them have stayed with us as volunteers. So doing this is very important for you to really focus on the people that you need to focus, and just stop wasting time and money on people that are really, really not. Don't do it like us 8 or 10 years ago. Do it like us today. We're much more efficient with our work. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm Parr. I'm a senior campaigner at the Humane League UK. As a charity, we exist to end the abuse of animals raised for food. Our primary focus is to improve the living conditions for chickens raised for meat in the UK, and putting pressure on UK companies to adopt the Better Chicken Commitment, the BCC, and improving baseline standards of those companies' chicken welfare policies. So 2/3 of the chicken meat supply in the UK is retailed at supermarkets, and our organisational strategy prioritises supermarkets as they are the key actors who can catalyse systematic change. And our campaigns predominantly target the biggest supermarkets in the country. So the Cooperative Group Limited, known as Co-op, is the UK's 5th largest food retailer with over 2,500 convenience stores across the country. And in the UK, the Co-op has a reputation for being an ethical retailer, and it prides itself on being, I quote, a pioneer in animal welfare. With a cooperative business model, which is slightly different to all the other supermarkets. Membership costs just £1 to be a part of, so that's just buying a loyalty card. And so democracy and community are really fundamental values as part of this supermarket. This isn't their actual logo, by the way, this is just to clarify. So each year Co-op holds an annual general meeting, an AGM, and invites the Co-op council and the Co-op members to have a say on how the business is run. And one way to do this is to submit a motion, and anyone who is a Co-op member can submit a motion as long as it's signed by 100 other Co-op members who are qualified to vote. And to become qualified to vote, a member would have to spend £250 at the Co-op in a given year. And so despite Co-op actually being one of the first supermarkets to stop selling eggs from farms that still use cages, and they provide higher welfare for other animals such as pigs, Co-op has really resisted adopting the Better Chicken Commitment in full. And at the start of our campaign against Co-op, they were still using high stocking density and growing fast growing breeds chickens. So in 2022, THL UK began campaigning for the Co-op to adopt the BCC, and we initially faced resistance as kind of expected. So we attended the Co-op AGM and did a protest outside of the front doors. And then the chair of the Co-op came outside and said that, oh, we can't really do anything. You need to come back and use the democratic processes. You need to submit a motion. So we did that. In the next year, in 2023, THL UK successfully mobilised Co-op members to support a motion at the AGM. And this took a lot of preparation. We needed to learn about the Co-op's democratic processes and also find insiders who could help support us with writing a motion, because there's so many different things we need to look through to make sure we can get that on the agenda. We also needed to find qualified members to support the motion, and that took some time. Ultimately, we found success finding the members through our network of supporters, but also through an update to the change.org petition, Supermarkets Stop Selling Suffering. This petition has been running for a number of years on behalf of several UK animal protection groups and backed by a national celebrity, Chris Packham. adding updates to this petition on supermarket progress or lack thereof has generated tens of thousands of further actions, allowing us to tap into another engaged base of supporters outside of our mailing list. And then once we found the qualifying members, getting the motion signed was pretty arduous. It had to be signed in person with wet ink, so we had to manually send out the motion to get signatures, compile it into a mega document. But considering we only needed 100 signatures, we got 400 signatories, which is a huge show of support. And then once the motion was accepted, we ran social media campaigns to encourage members to vote. We got volunteers mobilised outside the AGM on the day, appealing to co-op members as allies rather than targeting them as well. And then I gave a speech at the AGM as well. Unfortunately, we knew, well, co-op already knew what they were going to do based on this motion to adopt the BCC, and they announced that they were going to reduce stocking density for chickens, which was great, but they also said they would be doing nothing about the breed, and this is before the result of the vote was announced. And when it was announced, it was actually a very, it was almost unanimous of 96% of 31,000 co-op members who voted in favour of co-op adopting the Better Chicken commitment, which is pretty incredible. And so we saw co-op reduce stocking density, but stop short of adopting the full BCC. But it also did kickstart a chain of events where we saw other supermarkets in the UK reduce their stocking density for broilers. And so after the AGM, we continued with other tactics. We launched an investigation with open cages into a co-op supplier, gaining celebrity support, media coverage. We hosted protests outside co-op HQ, supplier events, and the brand new co-op sponsored music venue, Co-op Live, which we called Cop Out Live, because they've been copping out on animal welfare. And we also published an open letter to Co-op's new chair in a major newspaper. This helped us keep the momentum on Co-op. But Co-op would still not change their stance on breed. In fact, they went to lengths of creating a new marketing label called Space to Thrive, misleading their customers into thinking that these birds were higher welfare, when in fact, can a Franken chicken thrive ever? I don't think so. So we went back to the AGM this year. We're awaiting their response officially from the motion beforehand. We held a huge protest outside. This is probably our largest turnout ever from the Humane League UK. And inside, we actually jumped up on stage, as you can kind of see in the top right here, stopping the CEO from speaking until Sean, our managing director, was manhandled and taken off the stage. And this disruption was really effective at capturing the attention of the board at the co-op. They, whilst there's still no movement on breed, in the meantime, we definitely made a splash, and we're going to be continuing this campaign moving forward. And just some quick reflections of what went well. Getting the motion approved was a huge win and a huge show of support. We were able to reduce stocking density for one of the biggest retailers, which was brilliant. And it also, began a domino effect with other retailers. We've since seen Lidl and Morrison's and Tesco all reducing stocking density for their broilers. We also had some of our best performing digital content in the past 2 years from this campaign, which means it really resonated with our supporters as well as co-op customers and members. And we know our activities were well received by the members and even the co-op councillors based on their responses to us, indicating that the disruption and the campaign as a whole had a strong impact. And then some things just to consider for the future. This is a very different structure of a company. For a cooperative, so we were kind of going in blind. It's very different from other corporate campaigns, so I think in the future we'd want to set incremental goals as we're moving forward. We also know that co-op members support the BCC, but we struggle to find members to actually participate in the AGM who weren't already associated with the Humane League UK or our other campaigners. So yeah, we want to mobilize more people to attend the AGMs and take action in the future. I think that could be really impactful. And we also know that the co-op council and the co-op councillors, they're very, very close to the co-op, and we invested some time trying to engage with them to try and get them to take action. Unfortunately, they weren't willing to do it much outside of behind the scenes conversations. So there's just something to think about when engaging with co-ops like this in the future. And yeah, overall we're continuing to push against co-op. We're looking to do another motion next year to keep the pressure on, hopefully to mobilize more members than ever before, and hopefully pass another motion, this one focused simply on Franken chickens. We will hopefully see how that goes, and that will be happening next May. So thanks everyone, hope this was useful.